Welcome back to the Healthy Anger Toolbox, where we help you change to healthy anger expression and build your anger resilience. Please subscribe to the channel on Spotify and YouTube as we open up for you the Healthy Anger Toolbox. I'm grateful today to have a conversation with nutritional therapy practitioner Serina Vassar, and we're going to be talking about how you can eat your way to healthy anger. Welcome, Serina, to the Healthy Anger Toolbox.
Thanks, Marty. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Serina, how is eating connected to our emotions?
Oh, I love that question, Marty, because what we eat becomes us, and how we eat affects what we eat affects us. So all of this is connected. So much of what I've done over my years as an NTP, nutritional therapy practitioner, is help people to understand these connections. We are not just a body, something who eats, something who sleeps, something who exercises, or whatever. It's all connected. So there's a lot of connections that can be made from what we eat and how we eat to affect our emotional state.
So that's a big aha moment for people. They don't naturally connect the mind and body to how they're eating and what they're eating.
Yes. So one of the first things that come to mind for me thinking about the connection between what we eat and emotional expression, particularly related to anger, comes to something that we call blood sugar regulation. And blood sugar regulation might not seem connected to what we eat, but it's totally connected to what we eat. What we eat builds our metabolic fire, as I like to say. We have things called carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And these are the building blocks of our metabolism. These are the building blocks of every single piece of food that we eat is going to have some combination of carbohydrate, fat, or protein. And these carbs, fat, protein are macronutrients, affect how our blood sugar responds, how our metabolism responds in accordance to how those types of macronutrients are sort of utilized within the body. So, for example, if you've got a lot of carbohydrates, that's sort of like the kindling to your fire. It's going to build your metabolic fire and start the conversation, start the process of getting things going. And if that fire goes out, if there's not enough logs to put back on that fire, the kindling will burn quickly and it will burn out. Then you've got a lot of energy has to go back into rebuilding that fire. You need a lot more kindling to get that thing going, to get that spark going. And sometimes we have an emotional expression outward in the body when we have this physiological reaction happening within the body. You might have heard the expression hangry. If someone feels hangry, hungry, angry, a lot of times that is when that fire is getting really low or the fire has gone out. And your body says, oh my gosh, we don't want to be in a stressed state where we don't have a fire anymore. Send out stress hormones, cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, all these things to get our system to keep things going. We have stress hormones that are there to help us to maintain our metabolism throughout the day, our energy, our blood sugar regulation throughout the day. If that fire gets too low and those stress hormones come out, we feel that. We feel that. We may not know. Our brain's not going to say to us, oh, my metabolism is dipping. I've had some stress hormones come through. That's probably all I'm feeling right now. What our body feels is anxiety, stress, overwhelm, some prickly feelings, and that can often come out as being snappy, snippy, having that hangry sensation. I've just got to eat something now. And you get into this overwhelm. Your body's experiencing stress hormones, and your brain is trying to make up some scenario to match the stress hormones that you're feeling. So you get this outward expression that's not necessarily connected to what's happening in your body. It is, but it's sort of a misinterpretation of what is happening there.
So I'm in charge. We all can be in charge of building our own fire, of
Yes.
understanding what components are needed food-wise and eating habits-wise to be able to keep that energy burning so our mind and body don't respond in a less than healthy way. But also, is sugar the enemy then? Are we really talking about that's kind of the imbalance place in terms of what that fire looks like?
We talked about something called carbohydrates, and it's important to remember to recognize that sugar is a carbohydrate. So it's a very simple form of carbohydrate that burns quickly. That doesn't make it bad, doesn't mean that sugar is bad for us. It means that we need to be aware of how our body's using that as fuel. If a more complex carbohydrate, such as fruits and vegetables, things that have a lot of fiber in them, any fruit, any grain, any vegetable, any product made with grains like crackers, cakes, pasta, cookies, any of these things that are made with grains. Those are all carbohydrates. And what we know about carbohydrates is that they're quick burning, like that kindling. Now, something that's refined, like sugar, is a very, very simple carbohydrate and it burns super quick. In my head, I almost think about that as sort of a gasoline to help you start that fire. It's going to burn really fast and go out really fast. So sugar is not the enemy, but the goal is really to help balance and stabilize. You've got that burst of energy. It's like lighting that gasoline on fire to get that fire started. What's there to keep that fire going? If there's just sugar, it's going to burn out quickly. A big flash and it's going to burn out quickly. So sugar is not the enemy. It's just about getting those things into the right balance, building that metabolic fire for you. What do you have? Sugar and a more complex carbohydrate. So once that sugar goes, you can catch the next bit on fire. And then you've got your logs and you've got things that help to keep that fire maintained long term. Those fats and proteins have a different rate at which they break down and a different way of maintaining your metabolism for longer. So yes, sugar's not the enemy. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes. We need to help to build that, stabilize that fire around that sugar in the first place.
So when I'm feeling that I'm struggling with anger, things are irritating me, I'm agitated, I'm being snippy with people, short-tempered. Is that really a signal for me that something may be imbalanced with my fire?
Absolutely can be very much the case. Oftentimes, when you see people who have that hangry sensation, I know I've mentioned that word before, and I'm sure we've heard this word before. Many people who I've worked with over the years have had that sensation of hangry. And the first thing I do is say, well, let's get this fire built for you. Let's teach you how to listen to what your body is saying and build a fire accordingly. So, whenever we have symptoms, it's like a little red flag. Help, I need help over here. I've got a problem. Help me. When you feel that hangry, when you feel this overwhelm, you feel snippy and snappy. And there's a candy bar that has a slogan about you're not yourself until you have one of these candy bars. That is a great way to stabilize your blood sugar and reduce that hangry feeling because you've got quick energy. A lot of times when people feel these sensations, that little red flag saying, oh, I don't feel good, something's off, might be a big red flag. You might have a big angry feeling and it might be a big red flag. We go for something sweet. Our bodies, our brains tell us we want something sweet. Many people go for chocolate or something like that. Maybe a sugary coffee, something to say, let me stabilize this process, or a donut, or a cake, or a cookie. Because when our fire goes out, we want quick energy. Our body's looking for that quick energy. So that's useful. Your body's trying to help you in that instance. But what we need to do is then get to the logical part of our brain, which is not always easy to do when we feel that stressed spot. We're a little bit lower in the brain. We've got to get up to a logical place. And knowledge is power. We're having this conversation now. Maybe someone can remember and think about this later as they're feeling these sensations and these emotions. You go for something sweet, but you also need something to balance that fire. You've got that sugar gone back up, but it's going to go out quickly if we don't stabilize with fat and protein. That's the trick of it. Learning how to read those red flags. Sometimes you have yellow flags or orange flags or different colored flags. You're not quite at the red flag stage. How do we read your body's signals and symptoms to reduce that stress hormone, build that fire nice, burning strong and steady so that you don't get to that point of big red flag, fire has gone out. All I can do is think about eating sweets and calming myself down or having these big outbursts to sort of feel like a relief from those stress hormones.
That makes me start to think about, you mentioned, craving for sweets, but all comfort foods, when we're feeling that stress, when we're feeling that emotion building up, the anger perhaps has gotten to a point of it's starting to get out of control. I go for comfort foods. And you mentioned candy bars and other sweets. I happen to be a cruncher. I need
Mm.
pretzels when I'm feeling that emotional dysregulation. I like to crunch and I can go through half a bag of pretzels without even thinking about it. And so comfort foods, how does that play into the balance? Assuming that I'm trying to be intentional about my balance overall on a day, weekly basis, but then I get to a situation where I'm feeling angry in the moment or feeling stress in the moment, and I go for my comfort foods.
So I think comfort foods can be a really useful tool in the process, especially if you've got something that you have habituated, that you're used to, that you like. You like pretzels. I love potato chips. Okay, that is totally my thing. I mean, I'm salty over sweet all the way. So what I want to do is say, let's look at those comfort foods and think about what parts of the fire are we considering in
Mm.
those comfort foods. Much of the time, there is a significant simple carbohydrate component. Pretzels are a grain-based product from wheat or flour, or if you have gluten-free version, it's still a grain-based or carbohydrate-based product. It's going to help to bring that blood sugar up, which says to your stress hormones, oh, go back down. Fire's being built. We don't need to worry about it. Come back down to a baseline level. So you've built that part up here, but then to keep it from going out, you might start feeling more stable and more calm. Be able to take a breath, drink some water, drink something to help bring yourself to a state of calm or more calm than you were, and think about it. Okay, I've had some carbohydrate. What can I add to this to help stabilize my fire, my metabolic fire, and keep me feeling good? So with pretzels, one of the first things I think about, I think of two things depending upon what your taste preference is. I think about dipping pretzels in peanut butter or almond butter or whatever kind of nut butter you like, or pairing it with cheese. I love that kind of pairing, sweet and cheese, like that creamy. You have a lot of fats in peanut butter and in cheese. There's a little bit of protein in peanut butter, not a ton, but that's okay because you're just trying to keep things feeling stable and your body will burn through those carbohydrates quickly. And then your body will look for those proteins and start breaking down those proteins to keep things even more stable. And those logs that really keep yourself burning steady and strong for a long period of time are those fats. So pretzels and peanut butter is a great choice. Pretzels and cheese is a great choice. Something that's going to help you to stay really stable. My 3-year-old loves smoked salmon, and she eats pretzels with smoked salmon. And that is another fabulous way to get good fats, good proteins, keep things really stable. Basically, any kind of fatty or protein rich food you like, hard-boiled eggs, deli meat. I know a lot of people are in busy states when they're going and they have this crash. So what can you bring with you? What can you have with you? Protein bars. You can find some nice balance in some protein bars as well to keep that fire really stable.
So you've hit on a lot of really important points, and it's bringing forward in terms of the connection, because I do try to have healthy, crunchy snacks available so that I'm not constantly going for the pretzels and trying to balance that out, and doing a little preparation up front to have things available, things cut up, whether it's vegetables like carrots and celery and other things like that. But the pairing, I appreciate that in terms of being intentional of pairing my snacks and trying to meet the needs that way. I've also found, Serina, that distraction helps me. So when I want to go for the
Mm.
pretzels and crunch, I go take a walk or I go do something else just for 5 or 10 minutes. Because if I can get to a somewhat more regulated space, I don't crave those pretzels as much. So it's really, I guess, being intentional up front with having some strategies. So when you feel that stress build up, there are things to do.
Yes, and I can appreciate that distraction idea as well, where you're saying, let me give myself some space. What am I actually feeling right now? Am I feeling hungry? Am I feeling stressed? What's happening in this picture? Now, that's a really beautiful skill to develop as well. At the beginning, if it is a metabolic issue, if it is a digestive issue where you're talking about a food-based issue, you do need to feed that fire. And distracting yourself may not be the very best choice in that moment. Taking some deep breaths and responding to your body's needs is going to be really useful. A lot of us have been taught in our culture to not really listen to our hunger cues, our fullness cues. We push past them or we ignore them because we're doing something. We got to keep going. Productivity. Sit at your desk while you're eating lunch and don't even take time. You're still in go mode the entire time, engaging with things. So I would say the first step for me is not necessarily distraction. For minutes at a time, taking a deep breath, regulating, getting a sip of water. What am I feeling and needing right now in this moment? Getting yourself well balanced. I don't want to say a smart snack because there's a lot of like smart verbiage out there in like marketing terms, but getting yourself a balanced snack, thinking about building your
Mhm.
metabolic fire, having options available for yourself is a super easy way to say, okay, have a few pretzels, dip that in a tablespoon of peanut butter. It doesn't have to be a ton of peanut butter, just enough to say, okay, let's get a breath. And that sort of is giving yourself a bit of a pause. Do I need a whole meal right now? When was the last time I ate? Oh my goodness, I've been working on this project. It's been 6 hours. Let me take a break and eat a meal and come back to what I'm doing. So a pause is a great tool. It really is. I do not want to discount that tool, but I also want to encourage listening to your body's needs in those moments. As you get better and better at listening to what your body needs, particularly with regards to building this metabolic fire, you're going to have less and less time where that fire goes out. You're going to have more and more stability. It's going to become more like a wood burning stove where you just throw a log in there once in a while. It stays really well insulated and keeps its fire stoked for a long period of time.
And that's really down into the specifics about how to prepare, do some things up front, knowing that the emotions are going to change throughout the day and things like that. And I always appreciate the hangry, that connection as well. But it's really also isolating on snacking in general. For me personally, I seem to have a pretty good control on the meals. I've gotten healthy meals, balanced, done a lot of work into being intentional about that. But it's during the day when I get hangry or just hungry in general and what to actually snack on. Or, for instance, I might be working and I have a 10-minute break to go do something and get something to eat. And being, you mentioned go, 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 and being in that mode in terms of how that connects then with what I'm actually eating during that 5 or 10 minute break. I'm a
Or
snacker, so I can almost, I need to be as focused on that as I am on the meals. I'm doing pretty well on the meals,
okay.
but I need to be more intentional about the preparation for the snacking part of my day.
Yes, that makes sense. So two thoughts come to mind when I hear you talking about what snacks can I have. I'm really intentional with my meals. I feel like I'm well balanced, but I also need go-to snacks, things that I can reach for easily in those moments. The first thing that comes to my mind is I wonder if your meals are as balanced as you might think they are. When we are eating full, well-balanced meals, we shouldn't really need to snack in between our meals. We should be able to have that stability. It's like putting a couple of those logs in that gas burning stove, putting those logs on the fire, and we're able to go throughout the whole day. If you get to the point between breakfast and lunch where you're just like, I've got to eat something, what that tells me, that is like a red flag that says, hello, help me here. I'm not maintaining my metabolism between my meals.
Mm.
So I'm going to go back and say, let's look at your meals and see how you're building your metabolic fire in that meal. Many of us have a sort of preconditioned idea of meal size and what that should look like. And we think about calories, and calories are very important. Getting enough calories is very important. Many of us are not getting enough calories at a meal. And that sounds ridiculous because I know so many people are like, well, I want to lose these 5 pounds. I want to lose this weight or whatever. So they like start reducing calories at their meals, reducing fats at their meals. And what do we know about fats? Those are the logs that keep our energy burning steady throughout the day. They start focusing on low calorie, carbohydrate rich foods to bulk out their meal. But what that does is it's like stuffing a lot of kindling. Okay, you're going to go for longer, but it's not necessarily a better fire. For example, if you're having a really stable, well-balanced meal, you're really looking at like 700, 800 calories at a meal easily. And for people who don't count calories, that's okay. You do not have to count calories, but it's typically more than most people are focused on eating at a given point in time. We often have our baseline metabolism, which is going, keeping us alive, keeping our brain going, keeping our emotions regulated, helping us to keep all of these things regulated. And if that starts to wane and go down and we don't have enough fuel, that's what a calorie is, a unit of energy. It's fuel for our body. That's all that it is. It's not good or bad or scary or any of these things. They are units of energy that help us to be our vibrant versions of ourself. And when we don't have enough energy and enough fuel, things start to get shaky and shut down and not as smooth and easy and fluid as they should be. We start to feel hangry or brain fog or all kinds of stuff. We start to get discombobulated, disoriented with our day, disconnected perhaps from what we are thinking and feeling because our body is so focused on keeping basic functions going and not our vibrant, rich personalities, ourselves, our goals, our ideas, the things that we can think about to have effect in the world, in our workspace, in our personal lives. We need to be well fueled for that. So I would look back at your meals, and you also can have snacks. Finding those snacks that help you to feel well balanced and stabilized is a really good option. So I mentioned a few of my favorite things. If you're a cruncher, I love things like pretzels are great when you pair them with something else. We've got a whole lot of kindling in those pretzels. We need to find some fats and proteins, some logs to throw on that fire with it. We mentioned nut butters, hard-boiled eggs are really easy. You can boil a dozen eggs, peel them, stick them in your fridge, and just grab and go. That's a super easy way to do that. If you like egg salad, you can do it like egg salad. I went through a phase recently where I was just like super into this wonderful chicken salad that I made. So I just made a ton of it and put it in little containers, and I can eat it with a fork out of a jar or a container or whatever you've got. And it's super easy to grab and go once it's made and available. And I know that sometimes that's hard to get to the meal prep side of things and getting things ready for yourselves. But the beautiful thing is that we live in a country, in a culture, in a day and age where a lot of things are made easy for you. You have foods that maybe are a little bit less nutrient rich, doesn't make them bad. So pretzels don't offer a ton of micronutrients or macronutrients. There's not a ton of nutritional value, but it doesn't make them bad. It just means we've got to be aware and fill that out. So, for example, I know that you can get a lot of times pre-peeled hard-boiled eggs at the grocery store. You can go and grab those and have those, and they're sealed. So you can keep them in the fridge for a lot longer, perhaps, than making them yourself. And it's ready for you. Now, is that going to cost a little bit more money than making it yourself? Yeah, probably, but it will cost you less time. So you have to see what is going to be worthwhile for you. Having something easy, you know, is there. You can grab and go quickly. You can get delivered Instacart to your door if you need to, if you've got a lot going on, like small children running around the house. You can do things very easy to help yourself find those quick, easy snacks. Now, I'm a salt girl, not a sweet girl. I go for pickles. I love pickles. That's a fabulous crunch and salt that is less processed, less refined carbohydrate. It's a less quick burning, more slow burning carbohydrate. A pickle is still carbohydrate. It's still a vegetable, and any vegetable, any fruit is a carbohydrate. But there's a whole lot of a different complex of fiber in that pickle than there is in the pretzel. There's almost no fiber left in that pretzel, the way that it's been processed and refined and packaged. It is shelf stable, which often makes it a little bit different than something that's not like a fresh food or a more fresh food like a pickle. So fruits and vegetable snacks, you mentioned celery and carrots and cucumbers. These are great ways to get carbohydrates, keep that fire, quick burning energy, keep that going, and stay more stable. It's a little bit harder to break down, which means slower burning than a refined sugar or a refined carbohydrate, which is fabulous. But you also get this component of fiber, and fiber is so incredibly important for our gut health to keep us stable and to keep our mood stable. There's a lot of talk about probiotics and prebiotics, and should you take it in a capsule, and should you drink kombucha, and all these wonderful things that are out there to buy. My personal opinion and preference, and what I know about gut health and nutrition, is that you are what you eat. You want to bring good things in through your food and not necessarily through a capsule. I am a little bit on the other side of a lot of nutritional therapists. There's a lot of people who are totally pro tons of supplements, and that's okay in certain uses. I'd rather you get your nutrients from your food. And fiber is one of those nutrients that feeds your gut flora. Your gut flora is so helpful to maintain your mental state and your overall feeling of well-being. We have more microbes in our gut than there are bugs on the planet. Each of us, you have more gut bugs, microbes in your gut than there are ants in the entire world, which is just mind-boggling. And those microbes influence us. They help us to be who we are. They help us fight off pathogens and digest other parts of our food. So when you have a really vibrant, robust, healthy gut flora population, everything feels better and runs more smoothly and feels more balanced in our bodies. And how do we feed that gut flora? Probiotics are the bugs themselves, the gut bugs, bacteria. Those are the probiotics. Prebiotics are the food that the probiotics eat, and that is fiber. Much of the time, it is a varied diet with different types of fiber that feeds your gut flora, those probiotics that you already have. And when you have a nice, varied diet with lots of different types of fibers, any fruit, any vegetable is a great source of fibers in the body to get that variety. Strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, apples, bananas, pears, cucumbers, carrots, celery, tomatoes, all of these things you can think about. We're now in coming into fall, and I've been eating butternut squash. That's another winter squash. Pumpkins are all about this time of year too. You can get some good fibers that way, and you get a good variety. And what happens is your body will naturally, on its own, given those right tools, build a robust gut flora that's perfect for you. I talk a lot about something called bio-individuality, meaning what you need, Marty, is going to be different than what I need. I literally have an identical twin sister, and what my body needs is different than what her body needs because we are not the same person. We've lived in different parts of the world. We live in different atmospheres around us. There's different native bacteria, yeast, all kinds of things that we are breathing in and ingesting as part of us. So what we want to do is to facilitate and foster a healthy, robust system for us where we are now, bio-individuality. So eating a wide variety of fiber-rich foods to help you with the kindling portion. That's how I think about that. It's a great way to get that kindling to be built, stable, and then you bring in your fats and proteins to round that out.
That's amazing. I really appreciate you shifting to gut health because that, Serena, is actually the way that I was focused on, intentional at least, on my meals. My main meals was by adding the list that you gave of prebiotics and probiotics. I've added almost all of those to my diet and part of my meals in terms of the fruits and vegetables and grains and things like that. It's now the snacking. Now I'm going to have to rethink my fire. I appreciate that how we're all different, but what my fire
Yes.
looks like and compared to why I'm snacking so much, although my
Yes.
snacks have gotten healthier too. So I'm going to have to rethink that. But originally it was gut health. But the idea that what I'm eating is affecting my moods and my emotions. And when I used to
Mhm.
struggle more with anger, I think a lot of it was the fact of what I was actually putting into my body. And also, while we're talking about gut health and some previous conversations that you and I have had, it was a big aha moment, not only what we're eating, but how we're eating and our eating habits, learning about my nervous system and the go, go, go part of it, and then the slow down, the rest and digest part of it, and understanding that and having a greater appreciation for that and put my mind and body into a more relaxed state when I'm eating and how I'm eating, because I can have the habit of eating standing up, eating while I'm moving, eating while I'm doing something else. And that's mean I'm in go, go, go. And that's really a challenge then for my body to digest the food.
That's really important to connect to as well. I have said this to you, and I will say this to your audience. How you eat is sometimes, a lot of times, more important than what you eat, which shocks most people. How you eat is more important than what you eat. What you eat is very important, and that's what I'm trying to help people understand. What you eat, how you fuel your body, how you build that fire is so important. But how you eat affects whether or not you're able to utilize what you eat efficiently. We have two modes that our bodies are in. We have go mode and we have rest mode, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic go mode is often referred to on this extreme end of things as fight or flight. You're in go mode. Your body's like, we're on, we're doing stuff. This part, I'm going to say, is relatively driven by stress hormones. And remember, stress hormones are not bad. We need stress hormones. Cortisol, for example, is a stress hormone that is what wakes us up in the morning. So we are ready to go for our day. It's not bad. It's when it becomes out of balance that it can become tricky and challenging to work with. So we need those stress hormones to keep us in go mode when we're in go mode. We also need to be able to downregulate and shift into parasympathetic, or what we call rest and digest mode. If we are not in a rest and digest state, our body's not going to be able to utilize the nutrients and build that fire that we're eating appropriately. When we're in go mode, typically standing, moving, driving, working, sitting on our desk, doing our job, whatever it is, and we're eating at the same time, or running after children and trying to eat something at the same time, is like our body's in go mode, which is still stress hormone driven, still in that fight or flight state where we cannot digest our food in that state. Our body is going to do some basic chemical breakdown of our food. We have acids and enzymes and all these things that help us to digest our food, starting with saliva in our mouth, all the way down to stomach acid in our stomach. And those things are not going to be able to do their jobs effectively, efficiently until we reach rest mode state. So some people who have like bloating issues, one thing that can drastically help is to sit down and eat your food. Sit down to eat your food. Chew your food thoroughly. Digestion starts in the brain when we're in parasympathetic mode, and then it goes to our mouth. When we chew our food thoroughly, we have enzymes that actually begin the breakdown of our food right here in our saliva. That saliva sends messages to our brain. We taste our food, and it tells our brain exactly what type of stomach acid enzyme mixture is needed to digest that exact specific bite of food once we swallow it. And I think that's incredible. That's another testament to bioindividuality. Even every bite is a bioindividual response to help our bodies digest it and utilize it properly. Most of us are like rushing through. We chew 3 or 4 or 5 times and just swallow our food down and we just on with our day. If we can slow down and sit down, get into parasympathetic state, chew our food, enjoy that food, taste our food, and swallow it, that is setting us up for success first for lots of things, including a stable metabolic fire, reduction in those sort of spikes of stress hormones where we might feel that hangry or the need to snack. You might not go to the extreme of hangry. Let's say hangry is a red flag. This constant, not necessarily constant, but frequent saying, oh, I need a snack. Oh, I need a snack. That's like a little yellow flag, or maybe to an orange flag. We're not quite at red flag, but you're down here where your body is saying, I need some help with my metabolism. Things are not as stable as I want them to be. Give me some more fuel. I'm not necessarily using what I had from my meal efficiently, or able to tap into my stored food reserves, aka burning your fats that you've got stored. I always like to say that our fat storage in our body was the original refrigerator. We had no way of storing food many, many, many years ago. Our bodies would store it for us. And when we've got a really awesome, stable metabolism, our body will go into those fat stores and say, oh, let me take some energy out here, instead of sending up that flag to say, I need carbohydrates quick. I need carbohydrates
Mm.
quick. So what we want to do is think about how we eat. Parasympathetic, sitting down, chewing our food, tasting our food, smelling our food, enjoying our food, letting it digest, sitting down for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes after you're done eating, talking with a friend, hanging out, watching something chill and relaxing on your phone, or something like listening to a podcast that's not stressing you out, something that's relaxing to help you to stay in that parasympathetic state and get some digestion going. When that happens, you open up the presents. You're eating these foods, these blocks of foods. You have to open up the packaging to get to the nutrients inside. You have to be able to digest it efficiently. And sometimes we can eat quickly and go quickly, and you're like, oh man, I just had a bowel movement and half of my meal looks like it was still in there. And like, I didn't digest this very well at all. Sorry, I went to the gross route. That's what I do. We talk about poop. That also gives you a lot of information about how your body is functioning and doing digestion. All that to say, how you eat, staying in a relaxed state is really, really helpful. Now, I know that's not realistic for a lot of people and a lot of circumstances. Like I talk about, I have a 3-year-old and I have a 3-month-old. I am busy doing a lot of things. It is hard sometimes to sit down and eat my food. I have to make that a priority for myself, and I am not perfect. I don't get there every single day, but it's progress, not perfection. You take opportunities, you start setting goals for yourself and giving yourself the time to be able to reach those goals and sit down and have those meals for yourselves. And I tell you what, right now, the beautiful thing about all of this is that with practice and with time, these are skills you can learn. It's not like your body's broken forever if you can't do it now, or if you're always constantly snacking or hangry or hungry. Your body's trying to communicate with you, and you can learn what your body is saying and you can respond accordingly. Going all the way back to what I said before about not necessarily distracting yourself, but listening to what your body needs, teaching your body, yes, I will listen to you and help you to fuel you, to give you the food, the nutrients that you need when you're asking for it, instead of just saying, well, keep myself in go mode and eventually I'll stop feeling hungry and I'll just go on with my day. That's not the goal. The goal is to fuel your body efficiently. How you eat in a relaxed, calm, parasympathetic state is so, so important. I would say even a bit more important than what you eat in many circumstances, particularly coming back to your whole topic, Marty, of how do you help this with mood regulation, particularly with anger? Because every time I think about hangry or anger in association with gut health, food, digestion, all these things, I always come back to that fire has gone out and stress hormones have gone up to say, fire's out. What do we do? And what happens? Your body responds. Okay, I've got these stress hormones. I must be stressed. What happens?
So what you just shared is very inspiring. The fact that you're still struggling on the go, 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 and really it's all about like progress rather than perfection. It is a daily challenge for me as well. I'm sure for many, it used to all be go, go, go when I ate.
Yes.
So I just appreciate if I can sit down one time during the day and not be go, 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 and then be mindfully eating where I'm tasting my food and enjoying the sensory part of eating. And then, like you said, just relaxing 10 minutes afterward, not jumping from the table. And if I can do that once or maybe twice a day or in any other time, just slow things down while I'm consuming food, I feel like that's a win for the day. It's just not go, go, go all the time. So if I can do it one time or two times, I feel like I'm making some level of progress.
I think that's beautiful. I love that so much. Taking the time that you do have to use that for mindful eating. And I heard you say mindful eating, and I just want to mention something about that quickly. Taking some slow, deep breaths. If that's all you can do and you still have to go, go, go while you're eating, that will help drastically. If you're
Mm.
breathing slow and steady, deep breaths, your brain says, oh, I must not be being chased by a lion right now. I can be more relaxed. So, mindfully breathing can affect your digestion, which can affect your mood and your overall regulation capacity. Taking slow, steady, deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth is a very simple, totally free, easy way to help regulate yourself and get into a mindful eating space. Taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. I worked with a client years ago, and he came to me for bloating and like refluxy. Like he just felt horrible every time he ate food. And he would say to me, Serena, I just like every time I eat, I feel like I'm 8 months pregnant. His wife had just had a baby. And he's like, I feel like I'm 8 months pregnant. I don't know what to do. And so he said, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried these teas, I've tried supplements, and nothing is working. And he came to see me, and I saw him for it might have been 2 or 3 sessions. That's it. And all we did was talk about this: how to build your metabolic fire, suggestions, carbohydrates, fats, proteins. How are you building your metabolic fire? And how are you eating? I said, you sit down, you take 10 deep breaths, slow and steady, through the nose, out through the mouth, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Sit down to eat your food and stay seated for 10 minutes after every meal. That is your only homework. Think about building your fire, sit down, chew your food, some deep breaths, stay seated after you're done eating, and it literally solved all of his problems. That's it.
Wow.
That's all he had to do. All these things, he spent all this money and all this time on who knows, all kinds of stuff. And all he had to do was shift down into parasympathetic state to be able to digest his food. Mindfully eating solved all of the symptoms that he was experiencing. It's incredible.
And one
It's
thing you
incredible.
had told me previously that is like a mantra inside my head, Serena, quite frankly, is to chew until liquefied. So chew your food properly. I used to gulp food down, maybe 2 chews, and it was going down, but now I slow the whole process down. You mentioned the saliva and the digestive juices and that system, but chewing till liquefying my food has been the focus in terms of slowing the whole process down.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Thanks, Marty, for bringing that up. I think about that all the time. Chew your solid food until it's liquid, and chew your liquid food as if it were a solid. So if you're drinking a smoothie, for example, you still need to mix saliva in with all of those wonderful
Mm.
carbohydrates. Saliva is primarily concerned with breaking down carbohydrates, and smoothies are made a lot of times with fruit, sometimes greens, and all of that is carbohydrate. And we just drink it straight down. And we can set ourselves up for great digestive success by actually tasting our food. I also want to touch on the importance of drinking water. Water has so much benefit for our bodies. And a lot of times we just go, 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 and we're used to drinking soda, or we're used to drinking coffee or iced tea or whatever the case may be. But we also need water to be able to do digestion. Water makes up all of our digestive juices in the first place. If we are not well hydrated, our body's going to be a little bit more sticky and sluggish and not moving the way that you want it to be moving. You need water to keep all of the communication pathways in your body open, to build your blood, to build your digestive juices. Everything requires water. So adequate hydration makes a huge difference. 2 other fun things to think about with drinking water is, one, drinking cold water or warm water. It does not have to be just cold water, is calming to your nervous system. And you can go from that hangry, stressed mode. Perhaps you asked taking that pause, taking a walk away. Perhaps a good pause will be to take some sips of cold water and go, what do I need right now? Am I actually hungry? Am I frustrated because something happened that I have no control over, or I wish I had control over, or whatever the case may be? What type of flag are we dealing with here? Is this a hunger, digestion, metabolic flag, or is this a circumstance flag where something has happened here that I need to actually work on? Taking the sip of cold water can signal to your body, okay, we're going down into parasympathetic mode. We're going to take a moment. Are we going to do digestion? Are we going to do something else? But it gives you a little bit of that pause. So water can be really, really, really useful to do that. The other thing to think about with water, and this is getting into the fine minutia details, but it's worth mentioning, I think. Ideally, myself, many people find after you get this fire process set up and you are well hydrated, it is better to keep drinking loads of water away from your meals rather than with your meals. Not to say that it's wrong to drink water with your meals, but I think about increasing and maintaining that digestive capacity, keeping those juices concentrated to do digestion efficiently. If we drink a ton of water with our meals, we're diluting all of those digestive juices and giving our body more work to create more and more digestive juices to break those things down because we've now diluted it with a whole bunch of water. Having some water with your meal is fine. Ideally, you'll drink before or after so that you have good, strong acids and enzymes and all the things that your body needs to do to break down your food efficiently.
I do try to hydrate. I think 70% of people are actually dehydrated. So I'm constantly drinking water, but I do drink a lot with my meals. So I'm going to try to isolate that. And I appreciate that as that's a progression for me as well.
Sometimes when we drink too much water with our meals, we feel full artificially. It's not full because we've reached satiation of receiving all the nutrients our body needs. We feel full because our stomach is full of water. So that's another reason that I like to keep water away from meals as much as possible, because you want to be able to listen to your body's cues. In a perfect world, when you've got stability in all of these areas, you're going to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. Whether you have a lot on your plate or you need seconds or thirds, whatever that looks like, you need to be able to listen to your body. And sometimes we can muddle those messages by drinking too much water in that space as well. And the last thing I'll say about the fire building and maintaining your metabolism through your meal is if you feel that you're needing snacks, if you feel that you're getting hangry and needing those snacks throughout the day, look at that metabolic fire. Do you have enough fat? Do you have enough protein in that meal? You've got carbohydrates. We know that because you're having the dips in your fire. How can you add the fats and the proteins into that meal to help you feel stable? I typically recommend to go for somewhere between 0.8 or 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight through your day.
Mm.
For sake of easy math, if you're 150 pounds, you're getting 100 to 150 grams of protein in a day. That's a fabulous way to get a lot of lovely protein to keep your fire going, and then you fill in all the rest of those gaps with lovely fats, easy to digest fats, saturated fats like butter, tallow, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil. Those are really lovely ways to help maintain that fire and build that metabolism and keep you stable so you don't have these red flags and these big spikes of stress hormones saying, help me out over here, help me out over here. You just can keep that stability throughout the day.
I've got to be a better fire creator. It's awesome. And I appreciate all the information in terms of each of us as individuals. Certainly, we'll have to be critical consumers and take out pieces of that information. But even some of the work I've been doing, I'm able now, I think, to be more focused in terms of providing what my body actually needs. Thank you so much, Serina Vassar. It's been an unbelievable conversation. Appreciate you. And as you have now confirmed, we can actually eat our way to healthy anger. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.